So how I first got interested in XAPI is like ancient history now, right? 2012-ish. We had a few projects that came to us, most notably the one at the Ann Arbor Hands-On Museum, where what we needed to do were all the things that an LMS does, but not in an LMS, without logging in, being able to track groups of people, more than just SCORM-like completion. We needed to track lots of really rich, robust data, literally from students who were moving at the time. And so it seemed like that was the right solution, right? So something that was going to do all the things that SCORM does and be interoperable. The museum really wanted to make sure that they weren't locked into any one vendor, right? But that we had the ability to build on an existing data platform, but be really, really flexible about what we track. Where are we now? Fast forward to what, 7 years now, 8 years, almost 9 years since I've been working with XAPI. And there are more and more people getting involved. And there's a few things, right? In the early days, everything was really, everything was custom. Everything was bespoke software, custom dashboards and interfaces, a huge wraparound by the vendors that supported those projects. And they were beautiful projects, right? But they had this huge barrier to entry. Now we're seeing more and more the software tools we all have on our desktop as instructional designers, that sends XAPI data. It already does. We don't have to do anything with it, right? So all that's there. It's becoming geek-free. The platforms are there. The data profiles projects are coming out to really shape our data in a way that enables more geek-free usage of XAPI. I'm seeing more and more people do it. I think, what I love is when people share their work, right? And share their projects. Before he left Lamasoft, Andrew McGuire and Dave Kirschbaum had done a really, really interesting project in which they simply wired up their company's customer-facing knowledge database. And they're using XAPI to understand how people are interacting with not only pages, but content in pages by individual. So we can get all sorts of stuff with Google Analytics, but it's not by individual, right? And then you can tailor and provide really specific needs. At Fidelity in the UK, they rolled out an employee awareness and training program. And that infrastructure involved microlearning, a learning record store, an LMS, an email push service, and kind of like I'm a Delta SkyMiles member, right? At the end of the year, I get a personalized dashboard that said, this is how many miles you flew. In 2020, it was like, not many. But this is how many miles you flew, and these are the things that you did. This is how many cities you visited and all. This same project did this, right? But around your learning. So you could get a personalized report, not just from one learning asset, but the whole curriculum, right? Really, really powerful stuff. So there's lots of really interesting, and people are sharing their stories of this work. There was a XAPI cohort project team. There are actually several teams this fall that did great projects. Recently posted blog by one of them, the team from Australia. They created mobile geolocated training that would be used by the country fire authority to train their volunteer fire department people, right, to volunteer firefighters to follow certain safety protocols, and to trigger when they walked into an environment, kind of like Pokemon Go. They would walk into an environment, and the environment would say, "Hey, there's a learning experience for you here," and it would be right there. They even experimented with some voice activated. But what did they do? Right? They created a video about it. There's a blog post about it. They're putting it out on social media, and they're sharing those stories. And it's that kind of thing that really helps.
I think it's a nice idea. I think, it made absolute sense that we needed to get below a level of just SCORM reporting you've completed this module or not. need to know deeper answers. It's useful to know whether this particular problem within that whole module was something that everybody was getting wrong. Well, either we didn't explain it well enough or it's a badly written question. So we need that finer granularity and the ability to track other things. I really think the ability to look at, if everybody who looks at this video then does better in sales, that's important to know. So I think the notion of a simple architecture for exchanging activity information is really valuable, and making it a very open syntax and creating resources. By itself, it's not as useful to me. I got mad at the people pushing the XAPI when I went to one of their events. And I said, you guys aren't representing this right. And I created a diagram for them, because you collect this stuff in your LRS, but that's just the activity. What it really needs to be connected to is business intelligence, to information that's outside L&D about what are the outcomes. And if you're working with the sales group, what are the sales? If you're working with a manufacturing group, errors maybe. If you're working with the customer relationship group, what's our scorecard? And when you couple those together, that's when you get valuable intelligence. So I think XAPI is a mechanism to get us there. And maybe you can go out and use it in these other areas as ways to collect data, but ultimately you need to connect what people are doing with the outcomes and look at that. And it's a tool that makes that easier if you do it well.
I wrote a blog post 6 or 7 years ago that said XAPI or tin can was getting rusty, and I caught all kinds of flack in the industry for not jumping on board the XAPI train. And for a lot of years, I asked organizations about XAPI, and do you want it, as far as a feature for your learning environments. And I found a lot of organizations that said yes, and then my follow-up would be why, and I had a lot of difficulty in getting the whys out of what would be the incremental. But what's really changed, I think, is the concept of AI and machine learning and mass amounts of data. And so where I was talking previously in this conversation about taking data from things about learners that happen outside the system, from AMSs to CRMs to anything else, XAPI is a facilitator of that, is a way that you can make that data standardized. And so I'm seeing more and more solutions now. Think of XAPI in the sense of that mass data that's coming a lot of times, not just from the learning activities, but from all the learning activities that are happening, or activities that aren't necessarily formal or informal learning that are happening outside the LMS, used to drive activities within it. So in that concept, XAPI is helping towards that adaptive learning concept that we were talking about. With that being said, it's still not anywhere near as commonplace in the marketplace as you would expect after a decade.